faux pas.
Faux pas?
Big, hefty, stinking faux pas.
In the fourth season of Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld and George Costanza pitch NBC a sitcom based on the stand-up comedy of Jerry Seinfeld.
Nothing. What does that mean? The show is about nothing.
George is describing a show that's a lot like, well, Seinfeld, a sitcom about the minutiae and minor struggles of everyday life.
All right, we're done. You can have it now.
Oh, very gracious.
This idea that Seinfeld was a show about nothing stuck, even if Seinfeld himself resisted it. And doing nothing ended up making Seinfeld one of the most innovative and popular shows of all time.
I was looking for something different. Something that would have people talking at the water coolers.
But this popularity created a contradiction when it came time to end Seinfeld. How does a show about everyday minutiae stage the kind of grand finale expected from such a massive TV phenomenon? A big sentimental farewell, like the kind for similarly sized hits M.A.S.H. and Cheers, would be at odds with co-creator Larry David's famous edict of no hugging, no learning. So when the finale debuted on May 14, 1998, it confounded fans and critics who found it off-putting, too different from what the show usually did, while not at all what fans assumed a series finale should be.
This is it?
Was some of this disappointment inevitable? Or did the Seinfeld finale actually deliver on something the show promised all along?
I don't need any ideas. It's a show about nothing.
The whole thing sounds pretty stupid to me.
Here's our take on what the show about nothing did when it found itself forced to say something, and what Seinfeld's finale reveals about what we expect from TV shows, even ones that break all the rules.
Hi everyone, I'm Susanna.
And I'm Deborah, and you're watching
The Take. Be sure to share and subscribe.
And never miss a take.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community where millions of people come together to take classes that fuel their creative journey. If you are one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below, you'll get 2 free months of Skillshare Premium. So become a member today and start exploring your creativity for less than $10 a month.
Yeah, there's something in the air today. Do you feel it? There's something in the air.
Seinfeld episodes are made to feel small. They're comic sketches drawn from petty, everyday grievances, staged in the familiar confines of Chinese restaurants and parking garages.
But like rats in some experiment.
Reveling in the mundane drama of close talkers, condiments, and whether it's okay to eat eclairs out of garbage cans.
It was on a magazine and it still had the doily on.
Was it eaten?
One little bite.
A normal Seinfeld plot finds Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer trying to further their own selfish aims while chafing against the unwritten rules that govern us.
You know, we're living in a society.
Their only real conflict is the ordinary yet often insurmountable fact that they're surrounded by other people.
I will never understand people.
They're the worst.
The finale starts off in this typical Seinfeld fashion, albeit with a noticeable air of restlessness.
I've been to the movies.
Not this movie.
They're all the same. You go, you sit, you eat popcorn, you watch. I'm sick of it.
The characters are still talking about everyday things and debating minor social niceties.
Jill's father is in the hospital and you call to ask about him on a cell phone?
But things suddenly shift gears with an unexpected phone call about Jerry and George's long-shelved sitcom.
He wants to sit down with us and talk about Jerry.
Our show?
It's a momentous change, one that telegraphs that this episode will break from Seinfeld's usual low-stakes routine. The episode gets even bigger when NBC picks up the show and Jerry and George are summoned to Los Angeles.
You're moving to California.
Yeah, I'm only for a while.
Yeah, but Jerry, what happens if the show's a hit? You could be out there for years.
This is a device we've seen time and again in more conventional sitcom finales, where we watch as characters say tearful goodbyes, pack up their TV homes, and embark on the next chapters of their lives. But before Seinfeld can stage its own heartfelt farewell, Jerry and George decide to take Elaine and Kramer on a last blowout trip to Paris aboard NBC's private jet.
So we'll all go somewhere, the 4 of us, one big fling before George and I go to California.
Again, this is another TV trope, the sort of splashy adventure we've seen in the countless sitcoms where families close out the season with a trip to Disney World. At this point, it's clear that Seinfeld is offering a parody of what we've come to expect from a finale.
I'm sorry, I have to say I'm a little disappointed. I thought it would be a lot nicer.
When Kramer causes a commotion that sends the gang's plane into a nosedive, the show openly winks at the sort of life-or-death stakes we might predict for a final episode.
It can't! I like us!
The episode uncovers a new fan-servicey revelation about a main character, but in typical Seinfeld fashion, this reveal is incredibly trivial.
There's something I have to tell you.
What? What is it?
I cheated in the contest.
And it mocks another popular sitcom final convention by teasing a romantic climax for Jerry and Elaine.
Jerry! I'm always...
Only to laugh this off as another joke.
Straighten it out! Straighten it out!
The self-referential aspect of the finale becomes even more pronounced after the plane makes its emergency landing. The gang discovers they've entered an entirely new world, a kinder, gentler town somewhere in rural Massachusetts that marks a symbolic displacement from their TV home. Looking down on the world from their New York apartments, Seinfeld's characters often demonstrated a complete indifference to others' misfortunes.
That's a shame.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
And they do it again here, witnessing a carjacking while openly cracking jokes about the victim.
There goes the money for the lipo.
See, the great thing about robbing a fat guy is it's an easy getaway, you know? They can't really chase you.
But in this world, they can no longer get away with it. They're arrested under a Good Samaritan law, forced to stand trial for being who they are.
Why would we want to help somebody?
I know.
That's what nuns and Red Cross workers are for.
The trial premise sets up yet another TV finale staple, the replay of the show's greatest hits, with favorite clips and curtain calls for all its most beloved characters.
Yeah, now the big issue in this trial is going to be character.
But Seinfeld subverts this convention too. Rather than offering us fond flashbacks, the soup Nazi, Marla the Virgin, restaurant owner Babu, and all the others are here to cast judgment on the main characters, finally offering their perspectives on the group's selfish behavior.
And then Mr. Kramer gave you a used wheelchair.
That's right.
And from their point of view, none of it seems particularly funny.
All the time, mocking, all the time.
Most of the show's episodes have a way of evening out. No matter what, things always seem to reset by the next episode.
I'll meet somebody else. Sure, see? Things always even out for me.
This time, however, there will be no return to normal.
This time, they are going to be held accountable.
The finale positions the trial as a karmic payment that's long overdue.
Your day of reckoning is coming, when an evil wind will blow through your little play world and wipe that smug smile off your face.
They get it when Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer are sentenced to spend a year in prison.
We find the defendants guilty.
As its one-time rival Roseanne Barr once sniped, they think they're doing Samuel Beckett instead of a sitcom. And in the finale, the characters' no-hugging, no-learning ethos has finally led them to a dead end, to be stuck with each other in a purgatory that indeed resembles the existential absurdity of a Samuel Beckett play more than it does a sitcom.
Yeah, we could put on a show, maybe Bye Bye Birdie, or My Fair Lady. Yeah, Elaine. You could be Liza Doolittle.
And rather than its characters moving on to the next chapters of their lives, the finale finds them locked into being themselves, doomed to repeat their meaningless lives forever. Our last glimpse even finds them rehashing dialogue from the very first episode.
See, now to me, that button is in the worst possible spot.
Haven't we had this conversation before?
You think?
Ultimately, this final fate is Seinfeld's meta-commentary on the hype surrounding its own finale. The characters are imprisoned for literally doing nothing, right when the world most expected them to do something.
Your callous indifference and utter disregard for everything that is good and decent has rocked the very foundation upon which our society is built.
It's hard to overstate just how much expectation surrounded the Seinfeld finale.
But there was so much energy around the wind down.
Everyone was, the media was all over about, what was the last episode going to be.
When Seinfeld left the air in the spring of 1998, it was the most popular series on television, a rarity for any show ending its run. Its loss was preemptively mourned for months across magazine covers and preceded by a loving hour-long retrospective, ending with the sort of weepy, sentimental song that's usually reserved for high school graduations.
I hope you had the time of your life.
While the finale aired, the classic TV network TV Land even paused its programming out of respect, implicitly coronating Seinfeld itself as a classic before it was even gone. All of this hype, along with the show's enormous dedicated following, inevitably contributed to the feeling that Seinfeld would and should sign off with a proportionately big, equally heartwarming goodbye.
I also don't know what any human being could have written that would have lived up to the hype and the expectation.
The finale is certainly self-aware about those expectations.
The whole country is going to be watching.
And it largely turns them into a joke, making fun of the audience for even desiring that kind of conclusion.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, who knows? Maybe this trial will bring them closer together. Maybe they'll even end up getting married.
But while it's safe to say that the 76 million people who tuned in may not have actually wanted to see Jerry and Elaine get married, or Jerry and George become successful TV moguls, or even Kramerica Industries finally take off, they probably didn't assume the characters would wind up in jail, or that they would be teased for having expected something more.
What was it you were about to say to me on the plane when it was going down?
I've always loved you, United Airlines.
They surely didn't expect to be made to feel guilty for having ever enjoyed the show at all.
This is a history of selfishness, self-absorption, immaturity, and greed.
Entertainment Weekly's Ken Tucker criticized co-creator Larry David's choice to cast a moral judgment on the characters, and implicitly the audience.
I'm trying to give you a moral compass. You have no moral compass.
After all, as Tucker pointed out, it's not as though Jerry, George, and the gang had never paid for their various transgressions. They were punished constantly, just by virtue of continuing to live vexing lives filled with petty grievances.
Where the hell do you get the nerve? You invite me up for coffee and then you don't call me back for 4 days? I don't like coffee. I don't have to come up.
The finale seemed to contradict the show's own internal sense of ethics. Across years of watching these characters scrutinize social interactions, the show had often sided with them in finding most of its rules ridiculous.
This is my card. You threw it away.
You signed your name and you addressed the envelope. It's not like you painted the picture and wrote the poem.
As the critic Matt Zoller Seitz observed, Seinfeld carved a path for TV anti-heroes like Tony Soprano, Walter White, and Don Draper, in that it let its characters be purely selfish, treating the rest of humankind as a resource or obstacle while standing back and observing their shenanigans with a jaundiced detachment.
So they just stood there and did nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
By suggesting, even as a joke, that fans shouldn't have approved of these despicable people, the finale arguably betrayed both its spirit and the audience who'd gone along with it.
It's modeled after the French law. I heard about it after Princess Diana was killed and all those photographers were just standing around.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're the first ones to be arrested on it. Probably in the whole country.
But while the finale strays from Seinfeld's typically small story structure and slippery moral sensibility, it's undeniable that it stays true to its characters.
We gotta get out of here. We want to beat the traffic.
As Larry David later told Grantland, I was not interested in an emotional ride, and neither was Jerry. And there's no denying that the finale, like the entire series that preceded it, didn't offer one.
Don't wait for me.
All right.
The finale doesn't take itself or the moment seriously. It approaches those implicit demands to offer a heartfelt goodbye with the same prickly sensibility that made the show so beloved in the first place.
Will you shut up? You are ruining the whole trip.
You don't have to help anybody. That's what this country's all about.
Decades later, it's hard to say the reputation of Seinfeld's finale has improved. It's become a sort of received wisdom that the finale was a letdown.
Thanks for letting me take part in another hugely disappointing
series finale.
David even turned that disappointment into a running gag on his own show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he and the actors gather for a fictional Seinfeld reunion.
Larry, we already screwed up one finale. We can't do another.
We didn't screw up a finale. That was a good finale.
Over David's protest, everyone seems to agree that Seinfeld could have ended better.
It could make up for the finale, that's for sure. It could be a, we know, we're sorry.
Curb's slightly fictionalized world only somewhat reflects the players' real-life attitudes. While Jerry Seinfeld has admitted, I sometimes think we really shouldn't have even done it. He's also said his main regret was bowing to pressure to do a big finish at all.
And I think one of the things that people had a problem with is it didn't feel like the show because it wasn't small. It was big. Right. And we didn't really do big.
Larry David has been even more reluctant to express any regrets, blaming audience disappointment largely on their own impossible expectations.
They all have their little ideas of what should happen.
Right.
And your show isn't going to be better than the one that they had in their head.
Right.
So what do we expect from a series finale anyway? This conflict between audience expectation and what shows can actually deliver has only become more pronounced since Seinfeld went off the air, as the finale has been joined by even more controversial disappointments.
And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
Creating a satisfying finale is an especially difficult proposition for sitcoms, which tend to lack the sort of big, overarching plot lines that naturally lead to equally momentous conclusions. Comedies emphasize character, which is why so many sitcom finales tend to hinge on relationships. For sitcoms about singles, it's a romantic resolution.
I got off the plane.
Family sitcoms typically end with the kids growing up and moving out, while workplace comedies usually find their makeshift families splitting up and moving on to new opportunities.
I got my dream job at Cornell, and I'm still just thinking about my old pals. Only now they're the ones I made here.
Sitcoms tend to end with emotional closure, something that leans into the bittersweet feeling of saying goodbye to people we've spent years hanging out with in our living rooms.
I guess this is it. This is harder than I thought it would be.
But Seinfeld didn't do closure or emotions.
I really don't think so-called relationship humor is what this show's all about.
Yet at the same time, if the finale had been a smaller, more typical episode, it likely would have been deemed anticlimactic, a different kind of letdown that failed to live up to those months of anticipation.
If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have kept it so secret.
This created an unusual paradox for Seinfeld's creators, a no-win situation that the finale addressed in its usual ironic, self-referential nature, illustrating exactly how the burden of delivering a big finale can leave shows trapped in a prison of their own making.
You suck! I'm gonna cut you!
Hey, I don't come down to where you work and knock the license plate out of your hand.
Most Seinfeld fans probably wouldn't list the finale among their favorite episodes.
I thought it was a good episode, not a great episode.
In some ways, it's the most off-model Seinfeld episode ever produced, which makes it even stranger that it was also the most watched. But unlike with some other shows that missed their landing, Seinfeld's final episode doesn't seem to have cast a pall over the show as a whole.
Just keeps on getting better and better.
The fact that it isn't like other Seinfeld episodes has instead allowed the finale to exist outside of the rest of the series.
I was in the pool!
Whatever final judgment the finale makes about its characters, it surely doesn't stick. Even in prison, we see that Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer will just keep talking about nothing, like nothing has changed.
If I called Jill from prison, you think that would make up for the other ones?
Sure.
There's been no hugging, no learning, no something.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
In this, a sense of larger, cyclical equilibrium is restored. They'll always be stuck here together, forever debating life's minutiae, just like they will in endless reruns.
If we did one more scene, it would be a coffee shop scene of them getting out of prison, and they'd get in the booth, the four of them, and the first line would be, "That was brutal."
So in the end, Seinfeld's finale may not have been what we thought we wanted, but it was ultimately what it needed to be. And doesn't that make it a success?
Anything, everything, something, nothing. Who the hell cares? Put me down. I'm down.
All right.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified about all our new videos. This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community that offers affordable classes designed to fit your schedule and skill level. Skillshare is a great way to tap into a new supportive community that provides encouragement and inspiration. With classes on everything from graphic design to productivity hacks, you'll be immersed in a new creative world. One Skillshare original you can check out right now is Jazza Brooks' class on mastering illustration. In this masterclass for artists of all levels, Jazza shares his own creative process in never-before-seen detail, distilling his favorite tips, tricks, and techniques. Right now, Skillshare is offering our viewers 2 months access to all their classes for free. But that's only if you're one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below. So join today and jumpstart your creative journey.